o'clock in the Oval Office, we're going to have a signing with Rwanda and the Congo. So I'm a little out of my league in that one because I didn't know too much about it. I knew one thing: they were going with machetes. It is one of the worst wars that anyone's ever seen. And I just happened to have somebody that was able to get it settled. I mean, just is very comfortable in that part of the world. It's a very dangerous part of the world. I said, are you uncomfortable there? School children are being raided and killed. And I don't even want to say how, but as viciously as I've ever heard. Part of the world that I know. Very comfortable. Was able to get them together and sell it. And not only that, we're getting for the United States as part of it. They're so honored to be here. They never thought they'd be coming to. Look, this is a very tough part of the world. They never thought, they were just telling me, they never thought they'd ever be coming to the world. And so we're going to give them a great big reception. But that's after many years of fighting. It's a great thing. That's at 3 o'clock.
Welcome back, folks, to Congo Unfiltered. I am honored to be, again, meeting with you, speaking about the Congo, about the situation, things happening in the Congo, in Africa. So this is Congo Unfiltered. And it's been 1 week since Congo Week. A global week of action, reflection, but also resistance, right? And if you're tuning in for the very first time, I want to say welcome to you. I am your host, Gaetan Zoa, and I have been a member of Friends of the Congo, telling the truth about the Congo in a raw, unapologetic and unfiltered way. So today we are going to kind of like recap the highs and the lows of Congo Week 2025 with our guest, which is not really a guest, is our executive director, Maurice Carney. We are going to reflect on the impact of Congo Week, talk about essentially where we go from there, right? Like where we go from here, from having that long week of educational content where you all invited us to you. So we went out there in communities. We went out there everywhere, in Europe, in America, and even in Africa. We also had Congo Week in the Congo. I will also update you on what's happening now in the Congo, in the region, in Great region, Tanzania, things happening there, Sudan, things got worse. We will also briefly talk about that with my guests. But I think it's very important to know politically and socially how stuff happening in the Congo are somehow the mirror of any struggle somehow. And that was the goal also when you're having Congo Week. I remember I was in Eugene, Oregon. I was invited by Friends of the Congo was invited by the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And we discussed, they wanted us to kind of like drive the connection between Congo and Palestine. And I did that, and I will speak more about that for like later in the show. But that was essentially what we're supposed to do when trying to speak about the Congo, so that people can feel like Congo is not just a distant reality, it's not continent, right? And Congo Week this year was, I think it was really amazing. It was probably, and I'll ask our guest when he comes, one of the most, I would say, successful and powerful that we've had, or that I've seen 3 years now within the movement, and then decades of me just organizing on my own as a college student, as an independent person, as an individual. and seeing contents about Congo during Congo Week, and then seeing the contents now. Like something changed, definitely, right? Something changed, and what changes you all being able to join us into helping break down what's going on in the Congo, help us spread what's going on about the Congo. So we went to different campuses. I was honored to, be to Georgia Tech during Congo Week, meet with students. I was to Morehouse College, the AUC, and I think they call it the library and stuff. Had a very powerful conversation during Congo Unfiltered podcast. We did that on the Friday with students, and not just students, but there was students. We had a Morehouse alumnus, and we also had a Professor Summary, Professor Samuel Livingston from Morehouse College, and we had a really good conversation because it was very important to, just like I said, that I was trying to make the connection with Palestine so that people can understand and be familiar and relate. That's exactly what we did at Morehouse with Morehouse students at Georgia Tech, trying to connect that struggle, that Congolese struggle, that Black struggle with the American struggle, the Black American experience. And Grow into the Truth was the title. And it was my first time at HBCU, on HBCU campus, and showing that connection between Congo, showing that connection between Black American struggle, other oppressed folks. And I just realized that the new generation of youth is really standing up, right? Because there is this energy that we see, and I think that's a picture somewhere, because Gen Z are really driving change around the world, not just in Africa, but even here. We've seen it, the way people organize. And one of the most controversial elections talked about right now is the mayoral election in New York, and just how Gen Z are involved into shaping narratives, reclaiming the narrative. Because we talk about situation happening around the world, situation happening here, affordability, and how they have to live. And not just live, but also live in a way that is sustainable for them, right? And I know in the Congo we are even discussing still basic and primary rights, and that's okay, because we all have to start somewhere. I'm pretty sure the same conversation was happening at the very beginning, or in the 60s, when Black folks were organizing. But how do we learn from the experience of Black resistance or past resistance, whether they're Black, whether they're Middle Eastern? How do people organize in Egypt to chase Hosni Mubarak in 2011? How did Black American organize to claim, or to make sure that the civil rights were respected, right? So there is a lot to learn, and you never stop learning. That's something that I've learned. Like like the day that you stop learning is the day you dead, essentially. Like you constantly had to learn. And for us as a Pan-African organization, for a movement that is claiming, that is wanting to liberate itself from its shackle, from its oppressor, that it's very critical that we understand how our organization also did, right? Because nothing is new under the sun. So it's important to organize. It's important to educate. It's important to mobilize. To mobilize particularly for the Congolese community, the Congolese people, to mobilize so that there is justice, to mobilize, to educate, to raise awareness so that there is dignity, to mobilize, to educate so that there is not an attempt to erase what's actually happening or what was done in the past, right? And it's funny that I do that, that I'm saying that because our friends with the Congo, we have been really struggling with the narrative, and I think that some more folks are now picking up on that, and we're glad to have been led for over 20 years a movement that puts in the English or in the American world the Congo, and we are the first one, right? We are the first one, I would say, in modern history, because Friends of the Congo was established in 2004, and Congo Week started in 2008. But it's very beautiful to see all organizations that came after us to continue the work that we're doing or to do even more, right? Because we don't say it, we're not saying that we hold the monopoly of knowledge or organizing. But I do believe that if there are many of us doing the work that we're doing, and which is the case now, then the more people will be to reach, the more people will be able to educate. But the world of the mainstream media and international organizations still remain largely silent when it comes to the Congo. October 1st was the 15th year anniversary of the UN mapping report. It was published 15 years ago. It is a United Nations mapping exercise report which actually maps out the atrocities, and we are talking about crimes against humanity. We are talking about war crimes. We're talking about crimes of genocide. All could be shown as truth if brought in front of a competent court. 15 years ago. 15 years ago that we have a report that documents atrocity from 1993 up to 2003. Yet nothing. The mainstream media is completely silent. They will report about fightings happening here, fightings happening there, but to never report about the root cause of it. Never report about how foreign governments have been destabilizing the Congo from its inception, and how even the way the Congo was designed was never designed to stand as a country today, because it was designed at the Berlin Conference to be plundered. So we had Congo Week to remind people of that. To remind people, I was checking the news yesterday that that there was a news report that the roundabout M23 forces have seized the locality of Ndete in Masisi, and that's literally few months, 3 months after the Washington Accord was signed between Congo and Rwanda, where President Trump said that there is peace. Fox News branding or bragging that peace exists thanks to Donald Trump in the Congo. Yet fighting continues, right? Because we are also seeing or witnessing the continuation of a war during a ceasefire in Gaza. Same thing. So Rwanda continues to advance its military forces in the Congo under a peace agreement facilitated by the United States. I want people to really being able to internalize that. because this may be the first time in modern history where we have a genocide happening in Gaza and a foreign backed regime change underway in the DRC, all while a peace accord is still officially in place and with the United States serving as a mediator. So before I bring in my guests, I think we left with really two possibilities at that point that should alarm everyone. One, because we're talking about peace accord in both cases, that one, the agreement signed for the ceasefire in Gaza, for the peace in the Congo, were never sincere. And if the agreements were never sincere, it means that powerful state knowingly negotiated peace when they did not intend to even uphold it. That means that human suffering is strategically acceptable. That genocide and invasion can be managed and as policies, not as tragedy. That the lives of Congolese folks, Palestinian folks, are seen as politically expendable, right? And this to me is very terrifying because it means that the violence is designed, that the violence is deliberate, and that violence is definitely not accidental. And the second scary part is that the United States has lost influence over its allies. And if the United States has lost influence over its allies, then we are entering a world where regional powers act with impunity, where international law becomes essentially meaningless, right? Because you cannot tell Rwanda, your ally, to stop invading the Congo. That even superpowers can no longer enforce restraint and prevent escalation. And I think this is really dangerous of how international has become meaningless, because that really is a signal to a collapse of the global order. And I'm going to stop there. I'm going to pause there. I'm going to bring my guest, who isn't a guest.
Good yourself. The guest who's not a guest.
The guest who's not a guest. Our executive director. I'm good. I'm good. I'm very. I mean, it's raining here in Oregon, like always, Portland. But I've been really reflecting on. I want to say like Congo Week, but not really Congo Week. But the past 2 years that I have been in movements and how I've seen in like 2 Congo Week already, where I was deeply engaged in the difference between this Congo Week and the one that we've had in the past, and most importantly, the global solidarity around the Congo, around the issue of the Congo. So, what's your thoughts on Congo Week? How it went? What are your kind of your reflections about Congo Week 2025?
Yeah. I know you're supposed to have Bibi on to talk about it because she coordinated Congo Week overall. Doing well.
She couldn't make it. She's not feeling well.
And of course, Mimi held down Europe. She's whatever happened in Europe. She's the one who did it. So I guess that was the last resort. Not being able to get those two on. Maybe next week you can have them on.
Yes.
It'd be good to get their views, because they were in communication with people, organizing on the phone, emails, whatever. So I think a few things. One, for this year's Congo Week, we wanted to drive home the point that was an opportunity for to learn and to act, right? So I think those two goals were met, to learn and act, and to learn in particular from folks that are on the front lines, all right? we saw during Congo Week the youth of Bassanja. They were taking part in an agro-liberation training on the ground in the Congo, and they were keeping up with what was going on, and not only keeping up, they participated, right? They, especially when it came to issues concerning mining, which the Bassanja youth are part of collectives that's in the mining area. When it came to issues around the rainforest, people go back through our YouTube channel, they'll be able to see what the youth were saying about what they were doing on the front lines, the organizing, the movement building that's taking place. So Congo Week provided this unique opportunity for people from different parts of the world, with people who are on the front lines inside of the country, to exchange with them, which is key, not only for Congo Week, but for the work that we do with Friends of the Congo. It's not easy to share with folks. There are people inside the country who are actually doing something to change the situation. They're organizing, they're mobilizing, they're involved in popular education. The diet that's usually given, especially on social media, is take the camera, come and see this woman has been raped, come and see this child is without, whatever, right? So Congolese are presented ad nauseum as helpless, right? As if they're solely the victims, of the corporations, the victims of the technology, and people are guilted. You should feel bad, and because you feel bad, you should donate. So it's really trying to share something. I don't even say different, but enroll people in possibilities. Like, okay, folks, the corporations are against the people, right? The neighboring countries are invading, right? The local elites are betraying the people, right? Foreign governments are against the folks, multilateral institutions. But the people are not just sitting there. They're organizing their idea of what they want the future of the Congo to look like, right? And they're sharing that with the rest of the world through books like Mama Justine, Women Resist War, right? She wrote an entire book. So if you want to find out what's the condition of women, how are women resisting, read Mama Justine's book, right? Women Resist War. If you want to find out what the tens of thousands of diggers, right, are saying in the old Katanga, Grand Katanga, Lualaba, Tanganyika, Old Katanga provinces, watch, Bikuba, right? Watch Luanzo, because it's their voices that are in those films, right? And if you want to find out what folks are on the front lines in the rainforest, a prayer to the tree, right? A Bassanja tree prayer, rather, sorry. So the Bassanja series are right there for people to go on the website and hear directly from folks on the ground and what they're asking for, right? So the opportunity for that to happen, the response that we've received from people who participated from really all over the world, from Brisbane, Australia, from New Zealand, from Colombia, from Mexico, from Austria, from Berlin, Germany, from Rome, Italy, from London, England, Dallas, New York, Atlanta, Washington, San Francisco, Oakland, Los Angeles, folks, Ottawa, out of
Eugene,
Oregon, participated from all over the world, where they can get direct access to what frontline organizers, movement builders are saying, doing, and encouraging in terms of people's participation. So in that respect, I think it was tremendously successful,
Yeah.
and is a really solid foundation. I shouldn't say foundation, another solid level in which for us to build and expand, right?
So let me ask you this, if I may interject and ask you this question, because I've seen on social media the discourse and as victims, and because Congolese people are victims, then people should donate, right? And one of the reasons why I joined Friends with the Congo, because the charity part is there, and I'm not going to deny that the humanitarian crisis deserves attention, that people are actually in need, right? But the work of Friends of the Congo does not just stop the charity part. Like, Friends of the Congo also empower Congolese folks, train them, provide them with the tools, and also within American borders in the United States and even in Europe. You mentioned Mama Mimi was our European coordinator, that we also try to advocate for policy changes, because I've gotten to learn that what's going on in the Congo from the 1885 Berlin Conference up until today is the mere results of a foreign policy guided by the United States, the UK, France, and the European Union, all the countries that essentially sat at the Berlin Conference and wanted a piece of the Congo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is, because I've said this discourse that people do not care about Congolese people because we're black.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say from the list of all the countries that you named? What would you say about the discourse that is out there that folks do not care about the Congo?
Yeah, it's a very broad statement. You know, I would be betraying reality if I said that. You know, our challenge right now as an organization is expanding our capacity to respond to all the people who do care, right? That's the challenge. So I couldn't really say people don't care. You know, I share with folks, like there is a just in terms of organizing around the Congo, right, and trying to mobilize global support. You really have to divide it into two: organizing around the Congo, and there's a post October 7th, 2023 organizing around the Congo, right? And the two are radically different, right? That is to say, pre-October 7th, 2023, you know, we're like, break the silence, you know, getting involved, you know, just really pushing around the education, raising awareness. Post-October 7th, 2023, it's how do we scale to respond and give people the tools who want to organize around the Congo? How do we create the tools for engagement, right? That's been, at least as an organization, that's been our challenge, right? Getting to the level where the thousands of people who say they fill out the form and say they want to join the movement, say they want to volunteer, you know, say they're just saying everything on that form that when you go to Free Congo, people go on freecongo.org and they're signing up saying like, hey, I want to do this. You know, I had shared this story before. I think it was November, December 2023. This sister reached out to us from Australia, and she's like, you know, I see what's going on in the Congo, and I want to go. You know, I said, well, okay. Part of what we do each year, we do every year, is we have a delegation that goes to the Congo in the summer, in June, right? Usually go through to the Shango conference in Goma. It's a portal that we bring people through so that they can have a solid grounding on what to expect when they go to different parts of the Congo. They usually go through Goma, then we take them into the rainforest and others go into the mining areas, right? We take them through different parts of the Congo as a part of the delegation. So we share with her, well, you know, all right, this is in December of 2023. We said, well, the next delegation is in June 2024. And she's like, no, I want to go now. Right? So I share that story that gives a sense of the level of engagement that we're dealing with, right? So we reached out to the Bassanja Coalition partner in Goma, and they said, yeah, have her come, and she's been engaged ever since, being volunteering, organizing, and she didn't go. She didn't say, I want to go to help, to save the Congo. She was like, I want to go to learn, right? And when she went, she was blown away by what was being done, even in the midst of a crisis. The level of organizing around the women, those same women who were in the displacement camps that produced a photo book, right? And a photo display that's being sold and shared around the world. The same women who are growing food to feed themselves, to sell to the local community, and to support orphans. So what she discovered is the tremendous amount of agency and organizing. The Mama Justines who's right there, Synergie des Femmes, in the Bulengo camp, right? Self-sufficient entity within the Bulengo camp, displacement camp, that's serving the displaced community and the local community. Women who and their organization was rescued 18,000 women who've been victims of sexual and gender-based violence. So they see this tremendous agency that's being demonstrated. So our challenge has been, Gaitan, matching that energy from this Australian woman, right, who wanted to act. So for us to, and people often ask, people talk more about Palestine and Congo, right? And they say, well, that's true, that's true. But believe me, the folks who are leading, millennials who are organizing around Palestine, they're firmly ensconced in the belief of a collective liberation. So if they're organizing around Palestine, they want to create space. They do create space for Congo. They do create space for Sudan. I can't tell you how many joint events that we've been a part of in Sudan, Palestine, Congo. Could there be more? I'm sure. But, for now, at least at this moment, in the level of our mobilizing, the challenge for us as an institution is meeting the demand of people who want to be engaged, people who want to screen films, host teach-ins, organize fundraisers, actually go to the Congo itself. So that's the challenge that we face in this moment. And keeping in mind, no matter how much you talk about the Congo, no matter how many eyes are on the Congo, no matter if, say, the mainstream media was to cover the Congo blanket wall to wall, ultimately, the change that's needed is going to come from folks on the front lines. It's going to come from Angel in Chopo. It's going to come from Joaquin in Goma. It's going to come from Ovid in Equator. It's going to come from Leon's, in Lualaba. That, so all of that attention that we talked about, the attention is its most impactful if that attention is going to be down to the belt to reclaim the land and to reclaim the wealth and to control their own affairs, right? In the middle of Congo Week, we shared an outburst in Lualaba where one artisanal miner was gunned down, by security forces, the Congolese military that was called in to crush artisanal miners who were encroaching on industrial mining property, right? And the person that the digger that was killed, in an effort to show their disgust, the diggers picked that body up and marched to the mayor's office, right? And then the military started firing on them more. What they were saying out of it, what the youth were saying, is that we're foreigners in our own land, right? And we're fighting to get our land back, right? That's the thrust of our struggle. We want to be the primary beneficiaries of our cobalt. We want to be the primary beneficiaries of our copper, right? So all of this attention that we're saying that's needed is needed to provide support, primarily, to folks on the front lines. And secondarily, of course, to put pressure on governments on the outside, on corporations on the outside. So that's that when you talk about awareness and people, all eyes on Congo and all that, that's not gonna, all eyes on Congo is not gonna save Congo, right? Mainstream media coverage of Congo is not gonna save Congo. It's a Congolese people. So we have to talk about center the agency, the organizing, the movement building, the popular education that is taking place, throughout the country, particularly, with the young people in the Basanja Coalition.
And it's interesting that you're saying that. Do you say that something that actually was discussed when I was doing my tour for Congo Week in the East Coast, and even in Eugene last weekend, because you talked about the diggers, that folks should be watching the movie Mikuba, and because the question that people keep asking me, and because that has been the headlines, right? Like boycott Apple, boycotts this, boycott that. And when I went to Georgia Tech, for example, I met with Professor Jovan, and we had a conversation with his students, and he was sharing me as somebody who is whose roots can be traced back to Haiti. That apparently, and it's something that I just learned, because that's why I said the Congo Week is really an opportunity for everyone, including ourselves, to also learn. And he told me that in Haiti, that after the revolt, that there was an embargo on sugar, that the West, essentially the United States, prevented Haiti to prosper because they wouldn't want to buy sugar from Haiti anymore, and that negatively impacted Haitian people or Haiti. And we were discussing about that because there was a conversation about one person in the audience was saying that, hey, we should boycott cobalt because there are children that are in the mine. We should boycott cobalt, right? Because this is the same discourse as people saying that we should boycott Apple. And the same question was asked again, finally, when I was in Eugene, discussing the connection between the Palestinian struggle and the Congolese struggle. And I just say that when it comes to the BDS, boycott, diversion, and sanction, that
boycott, divestment, and sanction.
Sorry, yes, thank you. Boycott, divestment, and sanction. That people want, in the case of the Congo, they want to throw away the divestment and the sanction part. They only want to focus on the boycott part. But what does divesting mean? It means that you're going to take your money that you were putting into something, you want to invest it into something different that was still going to benefit the struggle or the movement. But in the case of the Congo, that strategy isn't there, right? That strategy isn't there. Even the Friends of the Congo has identified companies or they are somehow involved, but I think we need to push it and adapt and adjust it that is concerning or regarding random companies, for example, right? Because that will be the best way to match that BDS strategy. But also the question that I ask is, why would you boycott Apple but not Samsung? Why wouldn't you boycott your laptop, right? That at the point, especially when we talk about technology that is literally helping our everyday life, conducting how we even operate, how we function in human beings, that we cannot just focus on the boycott part. But I mentioned about the divesting, so being able to reinvest our money into Congolese movements, Congolese organizations,
Mm.
movements that are actually fighting to liberate the Congo, that are fighting for justice in the Congo. And the sanction part, which is another term for justice, because folks who are plundering the Congo, folks who are involved somehow in a human rights violation in the Congo, needs to be sanctioned. Countries that are allowing atrocity to be perpetrated, who are allowing killings to happen, rape of women, they need to be sanctioned, and that's the justice part. So that movie, I haven't watched it, but I've seen clips about it, and I've speak with them, and I speak with you as well. And I think it's very important for us to center the Congolese voice, even when we're organizing to help them, because we cannot have the white savior mentality when trying to save the Congo, because the Congolese people, we have a voice, and we know what is good for us. Is it going to be good for Congolese folks who are already getting paid less than $2 a day? They're making less than $2 a day. Is it going to be productive for them, for the world to boycott cobalt, for the world to boycott Apple? Or are we going to come together and actually mobilize and advocate and support them in the quest for having a better pay conditions, for having workers' rights condition, for having the international community to hold accountable nations that are destabilizing the Congo, plundering the Congo? And I'm not sure what you can say about that, but I think it was very interesting to look at how the situation of Haiti was provided to me by this Professor Jovan. Well, the same case about the Congo, that he didn't think that boycotting the Congo will be boycotting the cobalt or Apple will be an issue, because that, in the case of Haiti, when the U.S. boycotted sugar, actually caused more trouble.
Well, there's so much there, and Professor Jovan has a really solid point, not only around Haiti, but also around Congo. You have to take into consideration, right? According to the World Bank, there are about 2 million, up to 2 million artisanal and small scale miners in the Congo, right?
Yeah.
And that 2 million artisanal small scale miners in the Congo have an impact on an additional 10 times their population, right? When it comes to socioeconomic impact. Let's say because of the small scale artisanal mining, people are able to buy food, pay for school fees, travel, the whole bit. So the artisanal small scale mining is the largest informal sector in the Congo, right? It may even outstrip, in terms of benefit to the population, the industrial mining sector, right? We're having some folks are doing some research, and we're trying to get some data on that. So that's a reality, right? Certainly that's a product of the capitalist system, the colonial legacy that's been imposed on the Congolese people. It's not ideal, right? If you look in the film Mikuba, on one instance, some the collective miners bosses, let's say, they say, because of the collective the mining we're doing, we're able to build some schools and do some things. And the next sentence, he says, we're living in hell. He said the foreigners are controlling everything. So we know that's certainly not ideal. However, is the answer to boycott? Well, in the United States, that's even the advocates, the conflict mineral advocates in 2010, they didn't advocate for a boycott. They'll say to the companies, we want you to, we want you to stay in the Congo, but we want your supply chain to be clean, right?
You're talking about the Dodd-Frank Act, right?
What's that?
The Dodd-Frank Act?
Yeah, the Dodd-Frank Act, right, of 2010, Section 1502 of that, the conflict minerals part, right? So there were like a whole students and everything advocating for that. And part of the reason why they said that is, they're clear that the Congo, as bad as it is, the a large segment of the population rely on the small scale artisanal mining, right? And at that time when the act was passed into law in the US, President Kabila at the time, he shut down the artisanal mining sector. He banned it, right? And what happened was it had hundreds of thousands of people were negatively affected by him just shutting down the mining sector, saying nothing coming out, right? The artisanal mining sector. What that does is when that is taken away from the people that, we're talking about, horrible conditions, health conditions, just horrible, right? Even when that's taken away, what they found is that drove people into illicit activities. So the outcome is make the people more destitute and increase in violence, right? So that's the data, that's the evidence, right? That we have. So, for when we see folks, campaigning around that today as a solution, we just say, okay, we've been there, we've done that. That's not, that was 15 years ago, that people were doing this. So that's not the answer. In addition to that, you have to consult with the people who are affected. What are the diggers saying? Is that one of their main demands for us to, on the outside, to boycott? We've been with the miners. I haven't heard them say that. Some of them have iPhones, that they're using, Apple laptops. I haven't heard them say that, they have Samsungs. I haven't heard them make that demand. So if you're really gonna do a boycott and you're serious about it, right? Say that's a strategy that you're serious about implementing. The number one thing you do is consult with the afflicted community, right? Are you going to get support from those tens of thousands of diggers for a boycott campaign? So when you speak about a boycott, you're not speaking because you have an Instagram account. You're speaking because you sat with the miners, right? You sat with the diggers and you've grounded with them. You've had conversations, you've had meetings. You've been down in the bottom of the mines with them. And as a result of that, this is one of the strategies you came out with that's fully endorsed by the miners. Right?
A collective actions, it becomes.
Yeah, it's a product, it's an outcome of consultation, of listening, of engaging, right? Of debate, of exchange with those who are digging in the soil to get the copper and the cobalt with their bare hands. Was that conversation had, right? And the policy that you're proposing, the action that you're proposing, was that a result of that kind of a discussion, right? That's the question that you have to put out there, because if it wasn't, then where did you come up with it from? I share with people all the time, or often anyways, you stopping vaping is not going to end the conflict in the Congo. You buying refurbished is not going to have an impact. In fact, it may make it worse, right? So, but if you're going to go down that path, at the very least, have that conversation. I know the conversations that the Bassandra Coalition has had with the diggers and the miners. It's a different prescription that they're talking about, right? If you look at resource-rich countries, like in Latin America, for example, you have a situation where the mining is done through a parastatal, a state company, right? That is engaged, that is responsible for doing the mining. And as a result of doing the mining, they enter into deals, whatever the deals are with corporations or what have you, that accrue to the benefit of the local population in terms of financial resources going to the local population, skills going to the local population, transfer of technology going to the local population, right? All of these going to the local population. So they're saying, what the diggers are saying, one of the big demands is our government are negotiating bad deals that wind up putting us in a situation where we're scrounging for crumbs, right? So how do they organize to pressure the government? And they also say that part of the reason they're in the mines and doing what they're doing, certain as it relates to being a collective, anyways, is because the state mining company Gécamine failed. Ever since the state mining company failed, they said we had to step in and fill the gap. Right? We're doing what the state mining company should be doing. Right?
Yes.
So those are some of the things that they're saying that are top priority for them. That's going to change the conditions in which they're living in, where they have to be artisanal miners, where children may be found in the mines, right? So they're very, very clear. And in all of the conversations, the films, everything, I haven't heard them say boycott is something that they're advocating for. Now, we know that there has been a 30 war of aggression and plunder against the Congolese people, led primarily by Rwanda and Uganda, right? And as successive invasions, 96, 98, sponsoring of militia groups, AFDL, CNDP, M23, right? All of them, right? Over 30 years, right? That has displaced people in the east of the country, captured mines, captured territory. Now, Rwanda is a main part of their tactic is propaganda, right?
Yeah.
They commit crimes locally and present themselves as a good citizen globally, right? Yeah. And one of the tactics that they use to present themselves as good citizens globally is to attach themselves to popular entertainment figures, sports teams, and sports establishment, right? To cleanse their image. They call it sports washing, right? And we see this at play in Sudan as well, right? With the United Arab Emirates, right? Sports washing. They're sponsoring crimes in Sudan. However, they are engaged in sponsorship deals that present them to the world as the good guys, right? As a good global citizen. So in those instances where their companies, their entertainers, their sports team that are a part of this process of covering war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes of genocide, it's our responsibility then to expose that. And that's a pressure point, right? Where we can put pressure, boycott. This is where a boycott would come into play on, the NBA, on the Los Angeles Clippers, the Los Angeles Rams, Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern, right? Arsenal football team. So we work with the fans of Arsenal, for example, the Gunners for Arsenal, to put pressure on the Arsenal football team. And the reason why I mentioned all those teams is because Rwanda has a sponsorship deal with them, right? So we put pressure on those teams, and we engage with the fans so that the fans can put pressure on the teams for the teams to cut ties with the Rwandan government as long as Rwanda is invading, occupying, and killing Africans in the Congo, right? So I would, just as a tactic, that can produce quicker results, more impactful results. It's not as sexy as saying like boycott Apple, because Apple is $1 trillion company. Everybody uses Apple products, so they're big targets. So yeah, it makes sense, boycott Apple. But if you want to have an impact on the climate and you're ready for some boycott, you really want to focus on those folks that are institutions that are and individuals that are covering for the Rwandan government. Just like we put pressure on John Legend, Thames didn't go to Rwanda. John Legend went to Rwanda. Put pressure on him. He eventually went, but at least he had to respond. He had to defend it, right? So I think that's a point of pressure that can make a difference if you're ready for a boycott, right? The NBA, Formula One is in line. Los Angeles Clippers, Los Angeles Rams, right? Kendrick Lamar and Dave Chappelle and John Legend, right? All of these folks who are supporting the Rwandan government. So that's tactically that would make sense. And then in all of this, as the diggers remind us, right, when they talk about a parastatal needing to be set up in order to fully benefit from their resources, is that the aim of the people is resource sovereignty. How can Congolese people control the cobalt, control the copper, control the coltan for the benefit of the masses? That's the aim. Now the question then becomes: does a boycott lead you to resource sovereignty, or is it organizing the people and mobilizing support for the people on the front lines and providing platforms for their narrative to get out? Like, this is our pursuit, to control our wealth. Right now they're saying we're foreigners in our own land. How do we not become foreigners in our own? That's what they said. If you followed us during Congo Week, the diggers, when they're asked questions, they're saying we feel like we're foreigners in our own land, right? So how do we work with folks on the front line so that they can not feel like they're foreigners in their own land based on what they're asking us to support? And then, just lastly, I'll say, I think a proper diagnosis is paramount. We often share about Antonio Guterres, who's the Secretary General of the United Nations. Before he became Secretary General, he gave an interview to the Financial Times. This was around 2008. And in that interview, he said something that was quite striking that sticks to us, stick with us to this very day. He said that, let us not forget, the international community has systematically looted the Congo. Systematically looted the Congo. He didn't say Apple, one company. He didn't say the tech sector or the auto sector or the electronic sector, right? He didn't say that. He said the international community. That means everybody. When you talk about international community, you usually talk about the West, right? That's really what it means, right? The West has systematically looted the Congo. So if that's the diagnosis, which we concur with, then what's the prescription? The prescription has got to be systemic, right? It's got to be systemic. That's where the prescription comes from, and not symptomatic or episodic, right? And the boycott Apple falls in that category of symptomatic and episodic, which there's no evidence whatsoever that it's going to redound to the benefit of the people or achieve the goals that people were well-intentioned, pursuing. So with the thing about it too is when it comes to Congo and Africa, just prescriptions are just thrown out there and imposed. There really isn't that in-depth going into analysis and investigation and research, and when we talk about advocacy, right, and coming up with something that's a product of that in-depth research, analysis, and engagement with the local population, right? I guarantee you, boycott Apple is not something that came out of any Congolese on the front lines. At least I haven't seen it as one of the prescriptions. And I've been down in the mines with the diggers, and that's not what they've shared with me, or that's not what they've shared with the Basanja Coalition, and some of them are part of the Basanja Coalition. That's not what they've shared in the films. That's why we share with folks, go to the films and watch it, hear them in their own voices. These are films that are made by Congolese with Congolese voices, right? It's not somebody coming from outside and making a film or writing a book, but these are all Congolese production. So our role at Friends of the Congo is to point people to that, because we notice that the knowledge production coming out of the Congo is not getting an airing, right? Those who are writing books, Mama Justine, Women Resist War, those who are producing films, Alcubulan Production, Penandaliko, produce like a raft of films. They're not, films that are produced by Congolese, about Congolese, with Congolese voices, they're not getting hearing. So for people say, well, what can we do besides donate? You can provide a platform. Go to your library if you're on a university campus and ask the library to order the book. Ask the library to subscribe to the film. Screen the film in your local community, right? Provide a platform. Mama Annie Modi, who's a part of Synergie des Femmes. Synergie des Femmes is a part of the Basanjo Coalition. She runs her own organization, Afia Mama, on the front lines in Goma and elsewhere in the Congo. You know, she was speaking to the students at Spelman. You know, they asked her about this boycott question. She said, use your phone to organize. That's what she's on the front lines. That's the advice she gave to the women at Spelman. You know, you have a phone in your hand, use it to organize, use it to mobilize, use it to support us, right? That's the best thing she said that y'all can do, you know. So if you listen to the folks on the front lines, I think you'll get a radically different prescription in terms of what you can do. You know, during Congo Week, we played a clip from a series of clips from Petna and Daliko Katondolo, who's founder of Yole. Yole Africa has been organizing in the east of the Congo since 2000. 2000, right? That's 25 years that they've been organizing. So you'd want to like find out first of all, how did they survive that long, right? In a hostile environment.
Yeah.
And then find out what are they saying about what we can do. And Petna was gracious enough to, you know, to share a few pieces like, how do you talk about Congo, right? A few video clips that he shared with people. How do you talk about Congo, especially from an agro-liberation perspective? Because that's where, you know, the Basanjo Coalition believes is the instrument for liberation for the people through agro-liberation. That's coming out of Cabral, Amilcar Cabral, Guinea-Bissau. So one Congo Week offers an opportunity for a deeper dive into a very profound issue that's of concern not only to the Congo itself and the Congolese people, but to Africa and certainly the planet overall, taking into consideration Congo's position, you know, between the climate crisis on the one hand and the energy transition and the AI revolution on the other hand.
And something that you mentioned, because you said a lot. You said first that the solution will come from people on the ground. Like ultimately, is people in the front line that will, as they're organizing, that will lead to the liberation of the Congo, and we're only there to support them, amplify their voices. I'm paraphrasing what you said. And a lot has been going on in Africa, in the Great Lakes region, in East Africa. In Tanzania, it's actually funny. The president essentially jailed her opponent, and she was reelected with 97.99%. That's insane.
She's learning well from her neighbor Kagame in Rwanda. Right?
I know, right? And Kagame
that should make people think. You know, just being a woman doesn't necessarily mean that you're revolutionary. Right?
What's the quote again? Black faces in high places will not save us.
Will save, like right, exactly.
Exactly. That's the case in Africa. I think Africa is actually the mere example of that. And Paul Kagame himself was elected early this year, I believe, or maybe it was last year, with 98%, right?
99%.
2024. 99%. 99%. And we see more countries in Cameroon. Biya, I think that dude is like what, 92 years old?
92 or something like that. He spends most of his time in Europe. He's not even in Cameroon.
And he got elected again, supposedly, right? We all know that he rigged the election for the 6th or 7th consecutive time in a row. 92 years old. Like, this dude is older than the United Nations. He's so like 6 people, but like you look at those presidents, and to me, it's not that they are remaining in power. It's like they are cheating to be in power, but it's like how the images are being shaped so that to the West or to the Western world, they do not appear as dictators. They do not appear as villain, right? And then you also mentioned the sport washing, and I want to have your opinion on that because the Congolese government has been copying Rwanda, and they have been trying to do the exact same thing. They signed a deal with FC Barcelona, Congo in the heart of Africa, and you can see in their in training Barcelona's team's jersey, like in the back. So I know you spoke about it multiple times already, but like really, like maybe on here, like what's your thoughts on that? Like,
man, why are you
the
doing that to
Congolese
me?
government.
That that puts you in a zone of cognitive dissonance, man. Because it's not even my thoughts. You speak to folks on the ground, in Kinshasa, young people. They're like, they're totally blown away by this, where they have a stadium that's run down, a football team and other sports team that are in desperate need of support. But the government saw fit to invest up to $15 million in European teams, right? So Congolese youth on the ground are, they're sharing with us that's insanity, and it kind of it gives you some insight into the level of thinking that's at the head of the country. It's really an indication of why, in part, of why the country is in the condition that it's in, because of lack of vision on the part of the leadership. That's that's a part of it, and the youth are very clear about that, and this is just further indication of that. It just doesn't make sense, It totally doesn't make sense. Now, what you have to know, what you notice, choose this his so-called leader. Yeah, he's absolutely right. Musoni, right? Leaders are imposed on the people. That's a really good point. That we're talking about. We're talking about a neo-colonial leadership, right? That's the reason for the type of leadership that we see, right? Because even since Lumumba was overthrown in the Congo, the leaders that have risen to power have not risen based on the will of the Congolese people. It's outside influence that has determined who would lead the country. So part of our responsibility, and that's a part of the education process through Congo Week, is to show to explain what neocolonialism is. What Nkrumah meant. What he laid out in neocolonialism, the latest stage of imperialism, the theory that he gave us to explain what is currently happening, why we see the Paul Bias, why we see the Alassane Ouattara's, why we see the Felix Tshisekedi's, who are in power and backed by the West. So that is certainly a fundamental part of it as well, and that's why we say it's the folks on the front lines who are going to organize to change the country. And even to get to the state, it's kind of interesting because even to get to the stage of a Tshisekedi, Gaetan, is because the Congolese people organized and resisted, particularly the youth and the clergy, right? Because if Kabila had his way, Joseph Kabila, he would be in power right up to today, right?
Yes.
If he had his way. However, the Congolese people organized to block him, right? To prevent him from staying in power and to force him out of power. And they chose
18 years.
Right. And he was in power for 18 years. That's why when Kabila is coming back and he's organizing, a forum in Nairobi, I'm trying to figure out what is he organizing that he didn't do? What is he going to accomplish now that he didn't accomplish in his 18 years in power? That's what the Congolese people, that's a question the Congolese people asked them in 2015, in 2016, in 2017, in 2018, and they put their lives on the line behind that. They say, Mr. Kabila, you want to stay in power. What are you going to do now that you haven't done in 18 years, where we've suffered under your rulership, under your reign, right? So the Congolese people, and that story is not told enough. The Congolese people organized, sacrificed their lives, right? You know, Rossi Mukendi, right?
Yes.
Luke and Kulula, they sacrificed their lives and
they rest in
Sister
peace.
Pinga, right? These are young people who are martyrs for democracy in Congo. They gave their lives, you know. They spent time in jail, you know. Jean-Marie, you know, Kolonji, you know, our brother Fred Bauma, they spent time in jail. Others were chased out of the country because they resisted, right? What you see happening in Kenya today or in Tanzania, it happened in the Congo from 2015 right up to 2018. And as a result of blocking Kabila from staying in power, the Congolese people chose a leader of their choice, right? In Martin Fayulu, right? But Kabila himself, who was still in power, Corneille Nangaa, who was the chair of the Electoral Commission, who's now the rebel leader of the Congo River Alliance. These are the folks who put Tshisekedi in power, along with Kagame in the United States and Macron in France. They're the ones who agreed to this deal. So when they wonder, well, why aren't Congolese with us now? Because you've been in power. You're the one who contributed to this situation, right? By fixing the results. How can Corneille Nangaa have credibility and say, I have the answer for the Congo, when the Congolese people said what they wanted for the Congo? They said what they wanted for the Congo through their vote in 2018. And you, Mr. Nangaa, you, Joseph Kabila, you stole the will of the people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're wondering why you don't have credibility today, it's because of your actions in the past. So it's absolutely right that these, people say Congo is cursed because it's richness, but you have to wonder, like, you have these forces that are just imposing these leaders on the people against their will, right? And it all started, at least this phase of it, in 1960, when the world united behind the United States and the United Nations in Belgium and stole the person that the Congolese people said they wanted to lead them to a better future, right? So this narrative for the past 60 years of external intervention to the detriment of the people is a critical part of why we see Congo where it is today. That's why it's so crucial for that international solidarity. Lumumba, we often share Lumumba in his last letter to his wife Pauline, to the Congolese people. He said that we're not alone. He said Africa, Asia, free and liberated people from every corner of the world be found by the side of the Congolese people, and that's what that's our appeal that we made, to be found by the side of the people who voted for a different leader than what they have today, right? And part of it is telling that story, like, no, we're not solely victims. We're not helpless. We organized, we sacrificed our lives. Congolese, they said that, to block this guy from staying in power who wasn't serving our interests. Right? So that history must be told. Like, it's kind of interesting because the folks who are, the elites in the Congo who are like tussling right now are those three guys who put the country who contributed to the country being in the condition that it's in. Felix Tshisekedi, Joseph Kabila, Corneille Nangaa, the deal in 2018. You need to do like a whole piece on that, Gaetano. I think you may have before, but just break it down step by step for people, what the thread is from 2018 to 2025. How is it that these three figures the Congolese people are trapped in the deal made by these three individuals that was backed by the neighboring countries and the so-called international community. That's a fundamental part of why Congo is where it is today. That's why, you can't boycott Apple and solve that problem. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Yes. I was actually looking for the kind of like the map that I kind of like created. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, I found it. I think I need to do more research about that, but I think talking about what we're talking about today in terms of the people that somehow are involved into the crisis, or kind of like a hierarchy, and I created that a couple years ago, and still with what I was reading online, what was being said in the community, and I came to the conclusion essentially that like really like all roads lead to Rwanda in terms of, you know, starting with Paul Kagame, James Kabarebe, who was the Congolese Army Chief of Staff, and then became General of the Army in Rwanda, and then Minister of Defense, uh, an advisor, Paul Kagame's advisor, and you can see also the relationship with AFDL, RCD, CNDP, and all these rebel groups, because it's always convenient for them to be branded as rebel groups, because then you can hide the invasion. And how, for example, the FDL was led by Laurent Désiré Kabila with his son that became president after Laurent Désiré Kabila was assassinated. And then you also have the relationship with M23, because he was said that M23 was under the direct command of James Kwabarebe. That was in 2012 that we learned that from the United Nations, and how M23 has Sultani Makenga, former colonel, and now he's the general of the M23 and AFC. And then Kwane Naga, who is now kind of like, he was the former Electoral Commission president from 2015 to 2021. And then he spoke in length about like the betrayal and how he handed the or proclaimed somebody that was not president. He proclaimed Felix Tshisekedi. And now these two seem to be in conflict. And to me, what's really I will say what's really frustrating is that we are going into circle. Like you talked about the elite and how the Congolese elite is the problem, not just in Congo, but the elite in Cameroon, the elite in Senegal, the elite in Ivory
Tanzania and
Coast, in
Kenya.
Tanzania and Kenya, because there are the problem. And in the case of Congo particularly, you see that for years the Congolese community, the Congolese people organized, and you gave example of people who were jailed or killed because they wanted Joseph Kabila out. But Felix Tshisekedi, has also as a puppet of the West, has made the conditions so bad in the country in terms of ruling efficiently as a leader, leading the country, leading the people to prosperity, to having more jobs, to security, to safety, to justice. He has failed in all of those areas that now folks are somehow worshiping or somehow going back to the old masters, Joseph Kabila trying to rally around him. I I think it's ridiculous that the Congo seems to be taking hostages, or seems to be hostages of the elites that are bargaining their lives so that they can strategize on how to gain power, how to remain in power, how to be in power for the longest time as they can, for as long as they can, while at the same time letting the Congolese people die, letting the Congolese people being jailed, letting territories being occupied by Rwanda, by Uganda, and having the resources continue to be plundered because they get to have some millions in their offshore accounts. And I just wanted to share that because I think that it is very, very, very unfortunate that we have a lot of work to do as an organization, as people, as allies to the
Yeah.
Congolese people who are trapped right now,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
They are really trapped. And all we could do is to amplify. All we could do is to help also not just Congolese people, but also folks in the region, like Rwandan people. That
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of a protest happening in Rwanda. The last I heard was at the refugee camp where uh, I think it was about 40 refugees that were gunned down by the Rwandan police. So people in Rwanda cannot speak, and those, if you know a Rwandan person who is speaking against the regime, is most likely living outside of the country. He's most likely living outside of the country.
Right.
How can we, how can we then make sure that we rally behind those people as they are working toward the liberation, where they are working toward justice, when they're working toward peace? And I think that's where the work starts with Congo Week, because it's a really in 1 week dense version of, we want to condense everything about activism, everything about the Congo, about the crisis, about humanitarian crisis, provide folks some sort of a guide to what they should do, how they should document themselves, so that they can hear, learn, and be active in the issue of the Congo. And from Congo Week, move later with us, with
Mm-hmm.
bringing us into the spaces again, with the speaker tour, with the Lumumba day in January, and all these years and all the month throughout the year, trying to go with us as we are trying to work toward making sure, as it's stated in our mission, that we're working toward peace and lasting peace in the Congo. Maybe you wanna, if you have maybe like because we're gonna wrap up, and maybe something to kind of like,
Yeah, no, you said it
yeah,
all. You know that we're gathering folks so that they can be enrolled in this journey for a free, liberated, and sovereign Congo. And a critical part of what you just shared is the narrative. You know, telling the story, because people don't have the narrative is so key. You know, there are folks in the East, and one of the recurring demands that they made of us, Gaitan, is to tell the truth, right? To tell what is truly happening. So the narrative is really important. That's what part of Congo Week, and people participating in Congo Week, is that we hope is that they'll leave with a narrative, right? The narrative, Congo is suffering from colonial legacy, right? You have the neighboring countries that have piled on, like Rwanda and Uganda, to make things worse, right? And you have these forces that we've laid out that are working against the people. However, the people are resisting. They have been resisting. They're organizing. They're movement building, right? That there's agency, and then we need to support that, right? That's key. And we've laid out that, we talked about how the people blocked. We are the Congolese. Last words of Mobutu, you're gonna miss Zaire. Hey, we don't want to deal with last words of Mobutu. Mobutu was a part of the problem, right? He was an agent. That was like the key agent. He was just part of that problem that he served as an agent for the West. But the key thing is, in terms of the narrative, to understand that narrative, right, and support the people who are organizing that there is agency on the part of the people, that the people have prescriptions, they have solutions. And that 2018 elections is a clear example of what the solution the Congolese people felt. They felt like we needed this leader in order to represent our interests, right? That was the agency being demonstrated by the Congolese people. They went to the polls, and you remember 2018, even people who were excluded from the elections because of violence and epidemic Ebola. They organized their own election. They went and organized.
They voted.
Like, we went and they organized their own elections, right?
Yeah.
Saying that the violence is not going to stop us. The epidemic is not going to stop us. See, so I think that's, if there's one message coming out of Congo Week people should get, is that Congolese are organizing. They are mobilizing. They're exercising agency on the front lines, right? That should be clear. And now, how do we support them? What are they saying we need? How do we support them on the front lines? And it's not just donate. You know what I'm saying? They, as I said, the brother from Goma said, tell the truth. Amplify. Mama Annie Modi, use your phone to amplify, tell our story, spread the word, amplify our voices, right? Because it is the people's voices that are not getting out. Their stories are not getting out. We're hearing from the elites. We're hearing from Donald Trump saying that he's brought peace to the Congo. No, there's a different voice coming from, especially from Congolese women, and each and every one of us can play a role in amplifying those voices, spreading the narrative that they're sharing, and standing in solidarity with them, right? And that standing in solidarity can mean a whole lot of things. And in order to see what that means, the options, in order to get the options, we encourage people, go to freecongo.org, sign up there. You'll see a list of options. Not everybody has to be out on the street and be dedicated 24/7. Your participation in supporting the Congolese people may just be passing on the word, right? May just be informing your friend and your family member and your loved one and people in your network, right? It depends on what capacity you have. For some people, they want to go on the ground, like a student that just went on the ground during Congo Week, right? That was her capacity. So there are levels of engagement that are available to you. But what we do make, the request we make, Gaetan, the request that we make is that we not normalize what's happening in the Congo. And by being silent, by doing nothing in the face of hearing what's happening, you're normalizing it. That's when you become complicit, right?
That's right.
Inaction is complicity, right? At the very least you can do is learn. And we've found that people learn and they're aware, they do something. When we engage people, they do something, even if it's just passing on the word. And that's where we're at. That's fine. The thing about Friends of the Congo is that we're able to aggregate the small actions from people all over the world and channel that into something substantial and impactful for people on the front lines in the country. So do something. Do something. Freecongo.org. You have a host of options beyond donating, right?
Yes.
You have a host of options beyond donating. Freecongo.org. Go there, sign up, get involved, join the movement.
Yes. Thank you so much, Brother Morris. It's always a pleasure. And I hope to see you or talk to you. I mean, I talk to you every day, but hopefully to have you so that people can hear directly from you, and also we can organize together.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gaetan.
Yeah. Thank you.
Peace.
So peace. And that was Brother Maurice, our executive director. And like he was saying, that Congo Week may be over, really, but it is over, right? Like, it was 1 week, beautiful series of events, but our resistance is not. Like, the work that we're doing as Friends of the Congo is not over. And here's how we can keep going. And Brother Maurice said that one is to organize, right? Continue to organize with us. Like we're gonna set up Congo teachings, art exhibition, campus dialogues, tour. We want to go to you. We want to be able to come to you and share what we know, share with how you can help us, how you can amplify our voice. And two is to educate, right? Like, it's very important and very critical for us to continue that work of educating by sharing the mapping exercise report of 2010 that I mentioned, and the different mapping report, the different UN reports. support materials that we share as Friends of the Congo. Follow us, because we provide on a day-to-day basis contents. We provide contents on our social media. We provide contents on our YouTube channel. Subscribe, follow us, and share those contents, share those materials, share the Congolese Action Youth Platform, the genocide campaign, and what they're posting about what's happening in the Congo. And use your platform, right? Use your platform, if you can, to share those things. And the third one, Brother Maurice said that you donate, right? Donate if you can, and if you cannot donate your money, donate your time. Join us as a volunteering and help support groups on the grounds and help us raise awareness globally. And then fourth one is amplify, right? Amplify our voice, amplify the plight of Congolese folks on your platform. Well, we really challenge you to essentially challenge the silence, challenge the system that has kept Congo oppressed. And Congo, like Brother Maurice has said, is not a result, a product of the crisis in the Congo. Doesn't only require charity. Like, we will take your money gladly, right? But that will not stop the issue of the Congo. That will not stop the issue of the Congo. What will stop the issue of the Congo is concrete action that will challenge the foreign policy put in place by the United States, by France, by the UK, by your own government, wherever you are. What's the foreign policy of your governments in regard to the Congo? Because if you can pay attention to that, maybe you will see the similarities with the system put in place to oppress you or your people or your community where you are, right? So really, my call to today, a week after Congo Week, is really to not let that feeling of after learning and taking everything in, don't let that feeling fade, right? Like, take action, and you can do that today by following or going to freecongo.org and then see how you can support the Free Congo campaign. I was glad to be with y'all, glad to talk to you, and I will see you next week. Happy Saturday, happy weekend. Ciao.